Guys, what's up? Welcome back here to today's edition of Intuitive Angling, and much appreciated you guys making some time out of your day to spend with me on the video. Really appreciate that. And guys, today I'm really surprised I haven't done a video on this before, but I want to talk about all of the different things that I have seen come out of a bass's stomach since I've been fishing over the past 50 years, and sort of give you my analysis a little bit about what that says about bass as far as their feeding habits and feeding preferences. So I think some of this stuff's going to really surprise you. We're going to get into that in today's video. Also, guys, just a quick reminder, I want to let everybody know that Tackle Warehouse has got a bunch of really good sales on their fishing reels right now. They still got some 20% off sales on everything on the site. If you guys are interested in taking advantage of some of those sales, I'll put my Tackle Warehouse link in the description of the video. And if you guys use that link, it's a good way to support the channel and give something back. And also, you can get my Block It Throwback jig there at Tackle Warehouse too. And talked about it before, this brown and orange color is one of my favorite colors for October and November. So I'll link everything in the description of the video. Really appreciate you guys checking that out. Okay, guys, this is one of the things that I have learned from this. This is an interesting study of sort of like the behavior of a bass, and the more that we know about it, is what I've seen bass spit up. Things that have come out of their stomach. Now, a lot of people have seen this firsthand by cleaning bass and filleting them out. You guys, we've talked about this before. I'm not saying that you're a bad person if you clean a bass. I personally don't do it anymore because we have so much pressure on the bass fisheries that I practice catch and release. But I have cleaned bass in the past, and I have talked to a bunch of my friends that like fish farm ponds and clean bass that can sort of verify some of this. But I want to talk about some things that I have seen bass eat, and I know they've ate it because they've spit them up in my live wells. So I know this without cutting them open to find out, and sort of talk a little bit about some of the stuff what I think this means. Now, here are some of the prey that I have seen bass spit up either in my boat or my live well. Obviously crawdads, and guys, I'm telling you right now, you cannot believe how big of a crawdad a bass will eat. I've seen crawdad pinchers almost as big as my two fingers come out of bass's mouth. They will eat a big crawdad. That's the obvious. Then, of course, you have your shads, your threadfin shads and your gizzard shads. Another thing about shad, guys, is you can't believe how big a shad a bass will eat. A 2-pound bass can eat and swallow like a 6 or 7-inch shad. They can get a big piece of meat down their throat. Now, some of them will die doing it. Some of the times they get caught in their throat and they can't, get it down, but they will swallow a big one. So you got your big crawdads, you got your shad. I've seen them spit up crappie, black crappie and white crappie both. I've seen them spit up yellow perch. I've seen them spit up catfish. I've seen them spit up white bass. I've seen them spit up little bitty stripers, all different type of assorted minnows, bluegills, red ear sunfish, pumpkin seeds, a baby snake one time. A friend of mine said, on the several of the fish that he had caught on some of his ponds had baby ducks inside of them. One guy told me he found a blackbird in one of them. The point of the matter is, bass is an apex predator, and they will eat anything that they can get a hold of. I mean, literally, it depends on, they're masters of their environment. And it's like, I don't care if something is 60 foot deep or if something is literally out of the water. If a bass thinks it can get it, it will go after them. There has been videos and pictures of bass actually coming out of the water to grab birds off of limbs that are sitting above the water. I've seen them do the same thing with frogs. That's another thing I've seen them spit up as frogs before. But it's just unbelievable how they've developed this ability to do that, because not only do they have the ability to basically catch anything that moves and to catch and swallow things that humans couldn't do per their size, they have that ability to detect that with so many different things. They can detect it from their visual sight. They can detect it from sound. They can detect it from vibration. They can do it in muddy water. They can do it in clear water, in deep water, in shallow water, at night. It's unbelievable how effective of a predator they are. And that's one of the reasons they've been on this planet for millions of years. If they've evolved to be able to just be masters of their environment. They can live in fresh water, they can live in brackish water, they can live in mud, they can live in clear water, they can live in water that's frozen over on the surface, they can live in water temperatures that are approaching 100 degrees. They are truly a remarkable creature. So how does this determine, or what does this have to do as far as the impact it has on your fishing? Now, a lot of this has to do with understanding the mood and the personality of the fish. Now, obviously, in order for a fish to go after this formidable prey of large shad, large perch, large crawdads, they have to be in a really, really aggressive feeding mood to do that. And it's my opinion that I think most of this really, really active, aggressive fish feeding goes on at night. I think that most of those big pieces of prey that the fish get come at night. And there may be some opportunistic situations. There may be a school of shad come up in the middle of the day and a bass busts out of them. But for the most part, it's been my experience in bass fishing that the fish that you catch during the daytime are fish that are not actively feeding. You're generating a strike from those fish from other aspects that cause them to strike a lure, like anger, curiosity, reflex, competition with other fish. There's a lot of different factors that determine into that. But when it comes to pure feeding, where they're trying to gain as much energy and as much calories as they possibly can get, I think a lot of that feeding goes on at night. So one of the things, how you can take advantage of that is obviously if you fish at night fishing is always better, especially with the larger lures. But one of the things that I have seen sort of an evolution, how the bass have evolved over the past 25 years, especially since we really, really started hammering our lakes across the country, is there has been a precipitous decline in the overall size of lures that are more productive. Now, you can still catch bass on large lures occasionally when the conditions are right, but overall, I have seen bass start to evolve to prefer smaller presentations. Smaller crankbaits, smaller downsized spinner baits, more naturalistic looking swim baits, smaller glide baits. Back when the glide baits and the big swim baits first came out, guys were catching them on 10 and 12 inch swim baits all the time. You don't see that as much anymore. Now it's the 2.5 and 3 inch swim baits that are really successful. It's the smaller square bill crankbaits. It's the finesse type crankbaits. It's the downsized buzz baits a lot of times. Now, I'm not saying this is all the time because it's all based upon your situational conditions that activate a fish to be more aggressive. But overall, there's been a decline in that. And I think a lot of that is simply because of the fishing pressure and the fact that a lot of bass feed at night. So another thing that you can do with that will directly affect your fishing is don't pay attention. I have never seen a correlation between seeing what a bass is eating and be able to duplicate that. In other words, I used to think that if I saw a bass spit up a crawdad or a shad or something like that, I could look at that crawdad pincher or I could look at that shad and I could try to duplicate the size of that shad that's the fish spit up, or the size or color of that crawdad, or the coloration of that bluegill. I felt that if I matched that, that I could increase my success. It doesn't work like that. Guys, I have tried to duplicate the prey that I have seen bass spit up for decades, and it never works. It's like you cannot look at what a bass is eating and say that is, what those fish are feeding on. I'll give you guys a prime example. This is probably the most obvious example that I have ever seen. I think I talked about this a couple of years ago, but I was fishing the U.S. Open at Lake Mead about probably 6 or 7 years ago. And I got in the practice period I was fishing, it's like literally every bass that I caught had these crawdad pinchers sticking out of it, and they were bright red. They were literally like blood red. And a couple of my crawdads, a couple of fish spit up some crawdads, and they were sort of greenish, but they had these, I'm talking the reddest pinchers I have ever seen in my life. And every bass had them. It didn't matter if I caught a bass on a topwater or a jerk bait or a shaky head. Every bass had these, or not every one of them, but probably 75% of them had these bright red crawdad pinchers sticking out of it. So I took my jigs and I took some of my crawdad imitating lures I had, and I had some red dye, and I dyed the pinchers red on these particular lures, and I started fishing them in and around these areas where I was getting bit on everything else. I never had a bite. I never had a single bite on some of these crawdad lures that I made look identical to the crawdads that they were spitting up. That made me realize, and I sort of felt that before, that doesn't have anything to do with it. It's like the things that generate a strike from a bass, in my opinion, it's the opportunistic feeding things that come along. It's not necessarily matching the hatch. I am a big advocate of the fact that matching the hatch is one of the biggest myths in bass fishing, to the most part. I think that your lure coloration needs to be more in line with what the sunlight intensity is, and the water clarity and the wind, all those factors together. I think that play a little bit bigger role in, getting those fish to hit, or not bite. And so anyway, guys, just a quick video. I found that interesting. I just wanted to pass that along with you guys about all the stuff I've seen bass eat. They are truly remarkable creatures for sure. So don't ever fall into that trap. I hear a lot of people thinking, oh, bass are just stupid pea-brained creatures. They don't know any better. Guys, bass are geniuses. And in many, many ways, they're smarter than human beings, because they've been on this planet longer than human beings have. And they'll probably continue to be on this planet long after we've made ourselves extinct from some of our bonehead moves that we make as a species. So anyway, I just wanted to pass that along. Hope you guys are well. Talk later.